welcome to Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside Ashley Nicole Moss in studio and Bill Ryder in LA along with me. Look at us. It's our maiden voyage.
We did it. Hi, guys.
It's been a long time coming, guys. How do you feel? We're finally here. We made it.
Yeah, we're very excited. CBS Sports and its infinite wisdom has decided to unite us as the NBA playoffs approach. We're going to be joined. A lot of fun stuff on the show. It's going to be a daily show. We're going to be here Monday through Friday, some combination of the three of us. And then also Avery Johnson's going to join us, Rip Hamilton, other people from in and around the NBA. We have all kinds of things going on. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm fired up. My son, who's 11, just tried to crash that wanted to be on the debut show. He tried to crash the show.
First of all, Bill, have some respect. His name is Henry, and he's cooler than you. Okay,
I mean,
if you're going to refer to your son on the show,
no
you
doubt.
refer to him by name.
Okay. Is that the rule with my kid?
That's the rule, because Henry here, you here. Okay,
but
cool kid.
Room for Bill to move up. It's going to be good. We'll check in on that. And he's also, from what I understand from his coffee mug, the world's best dad.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a hard thing to I'm the only one. I thought, yes.
Huge competition. Congratulations on that. We have all kinds of stuff going on the show. We encourage everybody, if you are listening to us on a podcast, please download it and follow us. Leave us a 5-star review. If you throw in a question, we could read that question in an upcoming mailbag episode. But later in this show, man, jam-packed middle of the Western Conference. We're going to dig into that. But first, we're going to do our little weekend rewind. We had a doubleheader here in LA on Sunday featuring 3 teams of note in the Western Conference. One of them, the Los Angeles Lakers, have now won 2 in a row. And man, what a big win for them on Sunday against the Wolves. Anthony Davis, this line that Anthony Davis had was absolutely outrageous. First guy ever in NBA history. That's a lot of history. 25 points, 25 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals since they started tracking steals back in the 70s. My God, what a game for them.
Yeah, Ash, I don't know where you come down on this. This is probably recency bias, but I am all in on believing the Lakers can make. Look, I know that they're in the wrong part of the play-in. There's a tough road to go, and matchups are going to matter. But last night, just a reminder, it's an if in the playoffs. If Anthony Davis can take over games at any level, let alone that historical level, plus LeBron, I'm not sure they're winning 16 playoff games, but just like last year, I don't want to face him regardless of who I am in the Western Conference. If this Lakers team makes a best-of-7 series.
I mean, yeah, we spoke about this a little bit on your radio show, and we've spoken about this in our group chat. I feel like there are just players that are difference makers, and I don't know if necessarily you would put Anthony Davis in that conversation, but the team he's on has a difference maker, and that goes by the name of LeBron James. So I do think that if anybody can do it, I have faith in teams like the Lakers. I have faith in teams like the Golden State Warriors. Even to a degree, I have faith in the Phoenix Suns to surprise some people because they have 2 difference makers, and that's Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. The only thing with Anthony Davis is always the biggest question mark is you never know which version of AD you're going to get. And I think that for me, I don't know if I can rely solely on LeBron at 39 years old to do it every single night. So if I can get a Anthony Davis like the night before or the night before last consistently in a play-in situation, in a playoff situation, the Lakers absolutely could upset a lot of people. I just don't know if I'm going to get that.
I think we need to have a little bit more respect for Anthony Davis. Previously, in previous years, I think that narrative was legit. That people were saying, like that he wasn't consistent enough. Who was it? Charles Barkley always calls him street clothes because he's always in street clothes. This season, though, he's been available. He's been healthy. He's been so good. I think like that previous narrative, a little unfair to him this season.
I don't know that it's unfair. It's interesting. I don't know that it's unfair. It certainly may no longer be true. I think it's one of you gotta show it. You gotta prove it. You gotta stay healthy.
Yeah,
and I know last year they made a run, but there were games. It depends how you mark it, because there were games last year in the playoffs where AD vanished in some of those playoff games, but not so many that they failed. I mean, they made a conference finals. I know they got dominated by Denver, but last year was an absolute success. He was part of the equation. So kind of in between here, I was one of those guys that laughed at the street clothes comment. I thought it was hilarious.
It's pretty great.
And true.
That's because you're a bully, Bill. You're a bully.
I'm not a bully.
You are a bully.
Is Chuck a bully? Are you calling Charles Barkley a bully?
Yes, I am.
Right. I love you,
let me run this past you guys as we look at the Lakers prospects here. So they have won 2 in a row, but they're still stuck in that 9 spot, right? And they've been there pretty consistently all season, that 9-10 spot. However, this I found really interesting. They're 6 games above 500 for the first time this season. So they're starting to cook a little bit, right? They also have, this blew my mind, they have 12 straight games in the state of California. They don't have to leave California until March 26th. Pretty nice, right? And their remaining strength of schedule, right in that middle of the pack, only 17th. So things are starting to line up a little bit for the Lakers.
Yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie now in the mix, right? After the buyout situation that I loathe and hate, but still he's a part of the situation. And my thing is, if I'm the Lakers, and I get out of the play-in and I play, this is just me, and I play anybody that's not the Denver Nuggets, and I'm healthy. Anthony Davis is healthy. LeBron's healthy. I feel really good about my chances for the reasons John said. They're playing really well. They look good. Obviously, Anthony Davis had a historical game. I think they're a little bit deeper than I thought they were going to be. I also, I guess because I'm a bully, Ash, I've been a big doubter of D'Lo at times, but whatever. Like over this run of late, he's had some really, really big games.
The other night where he went for 44 in the win over the Bucks without LeBron, that was his career high. He was incredible. D'Angelo Russell was in that game.
When we're talking about like upset some folks, like in what regard are we saying that? Are we saying that the Lakers are going to go ahead and make it to the finals? Are we talking Western Conference finals? Are we just saying that if they come into a series with the right team, that they can upset that team that we had advancing? Because I think it's fair to say that, yes, I think the Lakers may be surprising a lot of people, us included, with how well they're playing at this point of the season. And I do think that trajectory, if they continue it, is only beneficial going into the playoffs to play in. But realistically, what's the cap? Because there is a cap. There's a cap.
I'm glad you brought that up, because let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they do get out of the play-in and then they're in the playoffs proper. Should they play the team that they played on Sunday night, the Minnesota Timberwolves, all of a sudden? Now, I know it's a small sample size, just one game, but for people who are unaware of this, in other CBS capacities, Bill and I made a bet, and the bet was basically this. I'm taking the Wolves against the Suns, the Warriors, or the Lakers, should they play them in the first round. And the bet is we all go to dinner, the 3 of us plus our producer, Aaron, and the loser pays for dinner up to $1,000. I made this bet before Karl Anthony Towns was injured. We made the bet. Karl Anthony Towns got injured. And now all of a sudden, especially after last night, I do not feel good about it. So now, Ashley, if it's the Wolves and the Lakers, I mean, the Lakers match up really well with the Wolves, especially without Cat.
Can I just say that I personally don't care about the outcome of this bet because I win either way.
You do
so
win.
I feel like
you just need the matchup to happen.
It sounds like a you problem or a y'all problem, not a me problem, because I'm a winner and winners win and I'm going to win regardless. But I mean, I know that they're saying that Kat is trying to get a second opinion and seeing if there is a possibility for him to return, hopefully for the playoffs. I know that's been thrown out there. I don't know how realistic that will be. Bill, you would know better than me with all your, fingers on the pulses throughout the league. But I do think that the Lakers advancing relies solely on who their first matchup is, because I think that they're not good enough to beat anybody in the West, but they are good enough to beat or give a really strong, run for their money to certain teams in the West. And I think it's, what do they say? Styles make fights. So we're going to see.
Styles do make fights.
I obviously like their chances against the Timberwolves because I made that bet with you, John. I'm not sure that's
speaking into existence, Bill. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, look,
manifestation.
That bet was a lock before Cat went down. Now I'm rooting on the Timberwolves.
It was not. The Wolves you guys have been very dismissive of the Wolves this season. They've been at the top of the Western Conference basically all season long. I think eventually you have to believe your lying eyes. Defensively, they've been incredible. Now you take Cat out of it. We saw some of it last night on Sunday, right? Scoring has been an issue for them. Now, Anthony Edwards, the other Ant, right? Anthony Edwards has been unbelievable in the small sample size theater after Cat has gone down, right? But he can only do so much. He's only one guy. Where are they getting the other help from? Naz Reid has been really good, but I just don't know that you're getting out potentially of the first round if you're going, all right, it's we're going to need Cat. Oh, Cat's not there. We're going to need Ant and Naz Reid, and that's going to be our scoring. I wonder if the Wolves are now doomed, as you guys have been forecasting all season.
I mean, if Cat was almost a 50, 40, 90 guy this season. I mean, it's incredible
really
how efficient. He's a great player. And you said it. They are not great offensively. They need buckets from him. To circle back to your other question, I think the Lakers can make a conference finals. I do. I think it has to be the right matchups, and they have to get out of the play-in. I know. Look, I'm taking them over the Timberwolves. I'm not making the bet with you, but I would take them. I would not be surprised if they beat the Thunder in a series. The Clippers are such a better team, but I think there's a psychological advantage here in LA that LA just doesn't take that organization seriously. They're losing to Denver for sure. I mean, they're getting done. But there's a path for LA because of LeBron, because of Anthony Davis. And I think there's a similar path for the Warriors, but I think there is a path for the Lakers if things break the right way in terms of matchups where they did it last year. It's not like we have to imagine this.
I know, but the Heat also made it to the finals as an 8th seed. So like it happens, but it's not the norm. You know what I mean? Like it's the exception. It's the exception, not the rule. This is what I'm saying.
You don't think the Heat can make a run this year? I think the Heat can make a run too.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I mean, the Eastern, we're
sticking with the Western Conference. They just lost to the Wizards. You think that's the team that can make the run? The Heat are not nearly as good as they were this time last year. And they're not as good on paper as they were this time last year.
Yeah, maybe I am hypnotized by Anthony Davis's insane performance last night against a pretty good basketball team, even if they're missing a guy. But I think the Lakers are good. Look, I also think the Warriors are good enough to make a run. And the Suns, I think, have a really high ceiling and a low floor. So I know not all of them can do it. But yes, you do not, unless you're the Nuggets, you do not want to play the Lakers. You do not want to play the Lakers in a best-of-7 series, whether you're the favorite or not.
I was much more confident in the Wolves and their prospects as I was with the top 4 teams, excluding the Denver Nuggets, who I think are obviously the odds-on favorite to get out of the West, again, because they're just playing really good basketball. And Joker has acquitted himself and is almost certainly going to be the MVP again. But before Cat went down, it felt to me like pick a team of those 4 out of a hat, and then all of a sudden, I wouldn't be surprised. But the Wolves without Cat, they're so scoring challenged. You brought up the Clippers, though, Bill. They also played this weekend. As we look through our weekend rewind, they lost to the Bucks. The Bucks came in. It had been like a little bit of a bumpy road trip for them. They lost to the Warriors and the Lakers. Then all of a sudden, they end up beating the Clippers. Now the Clippers, let's not forget, no Kawhi and no PG. Right. Mm-hmm. They did have 4 of their 5 starters in double figures in that game. It was kind of funny. PJ Tucker was the only one who wasn't in double figures, but he did get to play and he scored for the first time in 10 games. So congratulations to PJ Tucker for not being further ostracized on the Clippers roster. But I wonder, what's your mileage on those other teams at the top of the West, especially the Clippers? Because they've been sort of hit or miss lately.
Let me also add, sorry, I just, as a note, they also had the back-to-back afternoon games that only the Clippers have to do in the NBA, which I know doesn't sound significant, but NBA players and reporters like ourselves and folks that talk about it were up late, right? Games are late. So I think, Ash, they didn't have their 2 best players and they were on this weird, which is why they did this weird afternoon back-to-back. I still like them though, Ash, the Clippers.
I think for me, listen, the Clippers are playing a lot better than I think a lot of us expected them to play, especially with all the intertwining storylines and, the narratives that exist about certain players on that team, not just James Harden, but Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. I think that the fact that they have been able to develop the chemistry they've had in such a relatively short amount of time, and I know they've played together in different situations, but playing on a team night in and night out is a complete turnaround from what they're used to. But I still have question marks about this team in the postseason. And I think that's a fair question to have for a multitude of reasons. You always question Kawhi's health. You always question Paul George's health because we have seen the dominoes fall at the wrong time and how that affects the rest of the team. Also, James Harden, the elephant in the room. I think it's fair to have questions about James Harden. He's playing way better than, again, a lot of us gave him credit for or expected him to play when he got to LA with, all the distractions that may exist in Los Angeles and whatnot. But I do think that he tends to disappear when you need him the most. And we've seen this. We saw it most recently in Philly. So until I see them in a playoff environment where it's not just a game that doesn't matter, now every game counts when you're trying to advance, is when I'll change my stance on the Clippers. But I like them. And I think that there's potential there. It's that question mark for me still.
I think the Clippers encapsulate the magic of the West outside of the Nuggets, because I think you could argue there's 6 or 7 incredibly talented, interesting teams that have all of these ifs that surround them. I know we sort of disagree. Like, I think the youth of the Thunder is an if, and I think Cat when he was healthy is an if for the Clippers, right? And Ash, you hit on some of these. Not that we forget, but Kawhi Leonard is one of the greatest postseason performers of all time.
Yes, he is.
At least this century, when he's healthy. So if he's there, and if Paul can play at a high level, and if I don't worry about Harden at all in the regular season. I think there's a legitimate reason to worry about him in the playoffs. But if he can figure that out, and I think Ty Lue's an outstanding coach, and obviously the Russell Westbrook injury isn't great, and sort of what that did for that team's bench. And if they can, and I think this is, I don't know if it's real, but there is this history of ineptitude for the Clippers that, as a cross-sport alert Cubs fan, I'll buy into the idea that sometimes the pressure of never succeeding actually weighs on a team. But if you are able to conquer all, if Kawhi's healthy and Harden doesn't have to do too much and plays well in the postseason, and Paul George is an impact player just a couple times, the Clippers can make a finals. Like, it's crazy to say about the Lakers.
They could absolutely. That's not. I absolutely agree with that stance 100%. It's obviously dependent on a lot of factors, but I don't think the factors are so gigantic that they can't be overcame by this team. I have to see it in that first series. I have to see it to really believe in change of pattern, change in reputation. And again, it's not so much with Kawhi and Paul George. It's with James Harden. That's what I have to see. That's the flip I need to see switch.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair with the Clippers. I mean, I'm in the same spot that I've been in this entire season, which is that there's 6 teams probably in the West that if you told me they won the West, I would not be surprised, right? And one of the other ones I wanted to touch on before we take a quick break, and you brought this up, Bill, I have been, as you two know, but the listeners now will find out, very hot and high on the Oklahoma City Thunder. I love them. They are well ahead of schedule, right? Not just for the future. They're going to be a really good team going forward, but they're really good right now this season. I mean, they're in first place in the Western Conference. They got a point differential of plus 7.9. Now, their remaining strength of schedule is a little problematic, right? The 9th hardest remaining strength of schedule. But the predictive models, and you guys know I like to nerd out on the predictive models, give them better than a 60% chance to finish with that 1 seed. And then from there, I think they're off to the races. I mean, SGA is a legitimate MVP candidate right now. He's not going to win. It's going to be Joker. But that just says...
He'll be 2.
Yeah, he probably will be, right? And that just speaks to the season that he's having, the season that they're having. They're going to be a really tough out for whoever ends up playing the Thunder. And it wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden we're talking about, man, the youngest team in the NBA just won the Western Conference and they're blowing people's minds. Listen, I know you guys don't believe.
John, as a lifetime OKC fan, yeah. I know this means so much to you, that all the years that you have dealt with, going through the trials and tribulations and the rebuilding of OKC, and when KD left and then Westbrook left and James, I know you're happy that this moment is happening for you in real time. And I completely agree with you. I know Bill and I have been kind of on the side of like, can young teams do it? Can young teams, push back against the narrative that they don't win? But I think the fact that OKC has remained so steady in the top seeded situation that they have found themselves in the Western Conference. We're not talking about the East, where there's such a huge gap between the good teams and the really bad teams. They're doing it in an absolutely stacked conference. As such a young team with not a lot of experience, they haven't dropped below 3 all year. Yeah. Once they actually hit that certain marker, they haven't fell from that spot. It's absolutely incredible what they're doing. And I am more and more a believer that this could be a Western Conference Finals.
I'll be the bad guy on board. I'll be the bad guy. I'll say what's true that nobody wants to say because they're a great story and I love them too. And I love They went from a league pass team to a competitive team. They are too young. The reason that's a view across the NBA is because that's a historical reality. I also think outside of Chet, they're undersized. And I think we sometimes overreact to regular season excellence, especially for teams that don't have the pedigree to go deep in the postseason. They're different in how they're constructed, but they remind me of Memphis when we thought Memphis was going to make, and Memphis lost to the Los Angeles Lakers. That was a real – hold on. That was a really good – that was a really good basketball team, Ash. And they were young, and their star player was – it will be again when he comes back from injury, was dynamic, and he missed some time. But that was a great team when John Morant was on the floor with that team. And they ran into a Lakers team that was supposed to lose, that wasn't supposed to be as good, and that experience and that superstar double power beat them. And I think the same thing could happen, not in the years ahead, but I think the Thunder are absolutely vulnerable to a team like the Lakers, who've got a couple superstars and a lot more experience.
Well, matchup-wise, it's tough for them, too, because of their size.
Yeah, 100%. They're small.
Real quick, my pushback to that, though, is I think this OKC team, yes, also very young, just like that Grizzlies team, they're drastically more mature. They're drastically more focused. They're drastically just more cohesive as a unit. This is a team that plays like they've been like a veteran team. I know that the age is a pushback against them. I know what the stats are. I know, what history shows you. But this is a young team with a laser focus, with a tunnel vision. And I think that is a huge difference maker when you're talking about how far they can actually go. The mindset is different. And you can't change a mindset, and you can't force a mindset that doesn't exist. And this OKC team has it. I'm absolutely
easy to say a team has a mindset. I mean, come on. That's not something you can measure.
They do.
That's the only time you can actually, well, we'll see. Because, Ash, the way you measure that is in the playoffs when it feels different.
Look at the regular season. They're not dancing on the sidelines. They're
the regular season. The dancing is the reason that Memphis lost. I think it was their youth.
I'm using that as more of a superficial reason. But what I'm saying is that you can see just the way that they approach the game, the way they approach their games. I just believe this is a more mature team than that Memphis Grizzlies team was. That's my only pushback.
I love that Ashley is warming to my Oklahoma City Thunder. For people who know me from previous stops or are watching us on YouTube, disregard all of the Philadelphia affiliation that you might know and associate with me. I'm really all about this year's Thunder. I'm very excited. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to go through the rest of the Western Conference because it's absolutely loaded, and there's some other teams that we want to hit on, and that's next.
The blackout mystery remains.
Welcome to March Madness. You just never know in the tournament who is going to shine.
Stream March Madness live on any device, anywhere, and be ready for anything.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John, Ashley, and Bill. You can find us if you're watching us on YouTube or you want to watch us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, turn on notifications so you know when we go live. Going to be doing a daily show. It's off and we're off and running. I want to go through the rest of the West, though, because there are some really good teams that I don't think that we've paid enough attention to. Principally, the hottest team in the NBA right now, gang, the New Orleans Pelicans have won 4 in a row. They're 11-4 over their last 15. They have Zion. Look, we've talked about street clothes Anthony Davis, right? Zion has taken a lot of strays from people, including me, about not being healthy, not being in shape. He's been, I don't know about in shape, but he's been healthy and he's been very good. And that team is cruising right now and they're deep. I think that they could present a serious problem for somebody in the playoffs.
Here's my thing with the Pelicans.
Okay.
I agree with what you're saying. And I'm not, taking me by surprise. I didn't think Zion would play this many games this season. And because, again, reputation precedes him. But I do see so much room for growth with this team, so many building blocks to continue building upon. But the biggest building block, Zion, I don't know how committed he is to this team. I know he's playing well, and I don't want to take that from him. But his commitment to the Pelicans as an organization, I don't know if it's there. And I hate seeing teams that are kind of heading in the right direction and building on what they've been trying to build for X amount of seasons. I hate seeing that big question mark, like, is your star even going to go through this process with you? I personally believe Zion does not want to be in New Orleans. And I think that whatever we're seeing is great in the moment, but I don't know if we're going to continually see this from them season in, season out, which is a shame because there's so much potential, because I don't think he actually wants to be there. And I don't know if that's a hot take, but that's how I feel.
Whatever his motivations, whatever his long-term planning, I think John is right. This is a crazy under the radar team. And I think, at least for me, it's the old fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Because I had bought into this team in the past, because when Zion plays and is healthy in the past, they've been really good. He's just not on the floor very often for all the reasons that you and I have shamed him at times. I think it was last year, as late as January, they were the best team by record in the Western Conference until Zion inevitably got hurt again. And so maybe that's part of the reason I shy away sometimes from buying too much into regular season excellence. But when Zion plays, because they are deep and they are interesting and they do play hard, and when he plays, look, the West is brutal, but you take that Pelicans team and you put them in the East without Zion, they're like, they're playing team, they're fine, they're a good team. With Zion, they are outstanding, like most teams when they have a superstar player. And so, John, you're right. I don't want to buy into it because it feels like I'm just going to have my heart broken again, like Ash thinks that city of New Orleans is. But when he plays, they are capable of being outstanding. This is not the first year that it's happened. It's just the first year, ironically, where it's happening, where he's playing a lot, but the West is so good, we're sort of missing it.
You hit something there, Bill, that I think is really important. And it's the part where you said John is right. I thought that was just such a smart point.
It came out weird. It felt
natural when you were doing it in the moment. But look, this team, like, they are under the radar. And this goes back to my previous point that if you put 6 names in a hat and told me that one of them won the Western Conference, it wouldn't surprise me. And I think one of those names has to be the Pelicans, because look, they're 8th in offensive rating. They're 6th in defensive rating, and they're 4th in net rating. The numbers bear it out. I mean, like, look, we spent a lot of time, for obvious reasons, talking about the Lakers and the Warriors and obviously the defending champion Nuggets. And, I love the Thunder, lifelong fan. The Wolves have fallen off a little bit, and the Clippers. Nobody really talks about the Pelicans, and they're just quietly about their business. And their business right now is just winning games and playing really well. And they create matchup problems for people because they are deep. I just think it's a team that, we kind of got to keep our eye on. They're also pretty comfortably in that 5th spot right now. They're 2 games clear of the Suns, who we're going to talk about next in the standings. And like, I don't know, they've looked more consistent than the Suns for sure this season. I like them.
They're a better basketball team with a lower ceiling than the Suns, right? By the way, if you're putting the Pelicans in that
that's fair
grab bag of teams that can win the West, and I might be sold. There's more than 6 for me. There's 7 or 8. The West is.
You think all 8? Any 8 that make it in could potentially win the West.
Every team but the Mavs in the top 10, you can sell me on.
Let's talk about the Suns then, because the Suns are right behind the Pelicans in the Western Conference. They're sitting in that 6th spot. Weird year for them. You just mentioned, Bill, that the Pelicans probably have a lower ceiling than the Suns. That's probably fair. They definitely have a higher floor than the Suns, but the Suns are hard to get a handle on, Ashley, because we haven't seen the 3 of them together all season, not for very long anyway.
Yeah, I have major concerns about Phoenix. I think the total number of games that their big 3 has played together is 23, maybe 24. That's a problem.
14 and 9 together.
I just think that there's not enough time for them to develop the chemistry needed to go far into the playoffs. The fact that you're waiting on Booker and he's dealing with his situation is just putting more strain on Kevin Durant, because even if you look at the game against the Nuggets, it took everybody to beat that team. And I know people will say, oh, it's a team sport, but that's not their DNA. They don't play that type of team basketball consistently, which is why the responsibility is always on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. You have Bradley Beal, who I love, but he's always in and out of the lineup for one reason or another. And again, it just looks like the Suns are once again in the situation they were last year, which is you're relying on Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. If anything, God forbid, happens to them, which right now we're seeing Booker not in the lineup, it just affects the entire team because there's not enough depth to supersede that. And once again, Kevin Durant's 34, 35 years old. I love KD. I'm a huge KD fan. But when we're talking about a conference that's as stacked as the West, you can't just rely on one guy. And there's not enough firepower on this Phoenix Suns team to go ahead and battle with the competition that's out there. If they had a healthy big three that had played together for the entire season, I would be not as worried, because I'd be like, those three guys can get it done. But it's KD and Booker, no Bradley Beal. It's Booker and Beal, no KD. It's too much of a variety and not enough of a unit.
I think we should reframe this then. It's not about they can't do it. It's can they be healthy? Because in fairness, there's almost no team in the NBA that can lose one of their best two players and win an NBA championship. And the Nuggets. If you take out Jamal Murray from that team, and Jokic is amazing. He's incredible. He's not doing it on his own. And that is a deep basketball team. Without Jamal Murray, that team is not the same basketball team, and they're not winning an NBA championship. You take AD or LeBron. No, I don't think so. I'm gonna respectfully disagree and push back. Of course. So I think, to your point, and it's an if because it's only been 20 some games, if KD and Booker and Beal are playing together, I think their ceiling is such they can beat anybody in the West. I think the problem is they can't beat everybody. They're not going to win 3 series. Maybe they win 2 because there will be wear and tear. So I think for me, the question is, are they healthy? And I think you make another good point, Ashley. Superstars do need time to coexist. They do need time to play together and get to know each other. We've seen this with Milwaukee out east, right? It takes a while. Have they got to know each other enough, even when they haven't been a threesome, to figure it out when it gets to the playoffs? That's the other question.
No,
they're
because
healthy, they're good.
They have the toughest schedule looking ahead for the remainder of the season.
They do.
If you watch them in fourth quarter games, they're absolutely abysmal. They can go ahead and fight back and it falls apart. That tells me 2 things. One, you don't have enough firepower because the guys who have been scoring the entire game are absolutely exhausted. And 2, you don't have clear definitive roles on who does what. And if you do have clear definitive roles, it's because you have constant changes to your lineup that it's a domino effect for the rest of the team. My biggest concern about this Suns team is we've seen this story before with different players, but the common denominator is Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. And you have seen what happens when you rely solely on those 2 guys to get it done. And that's not a knock to them.
That's why you need all 3.
Again,
that's why you have to have all 3. Everything you said is true.
That's the
when
issue.
It's 2 of them.
It's March. You still haven't seen the 3 of them together.
Which is why they need all 3 of those players to make a run. But if they have them, and if part of it, when Booker comes back, if all 3 of them can be healthy, they're just like your Knicks team. We'll talk about that another show.
It's not enough time, Bill.
Have to get healthy. Maybe
they've just been so hit or miss all season. I mean, the other night they lose to the Thunder, then they beat the Nuggets, and then they lose to the Celtics at home. And it's just been such an up and down season for them. And Ashley brought up a really good point, and I've mentioned this in our group text. They're terrible fourth quarter team. In fact, they're a historically bad fourth quarter team. There was a stat on the broadcast the other night that they have the worst net rating in the fourth quarter in 23 years among teams over 500, which seems like, I don't know,
which is the same amount of games they played together, a problem. So that works out.
could be potentially a problem. All right, we're going to take one more break, and then we're going to wrap up with the rest of the Western Conference on the other side. That's next.
And the crowd goes crazy.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Feeling good. Ashley, John, and Bill, we're doing our first show. Very excited about this. It's going to be Monday through Friday. We're going to be on YouTube. We're going to be wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So be sure to subscribe to all of those. Please leave us a review, all of that good stuff.
You just referred to yourself in third person. You said Ashley, John, and Bill. I'm
John. You're Ashley, and he's Bill. Everybody knows now. Why not? We'll figure it out as we go along. I want to wrap up with the other teams.
Ashley, does Ashley approve?
Maybe I'll be Bill. We'll see how it goes. I want to wrap up with the other teams in the Western Conference. The Kings also haven't gotten a lot of attention this season. They're currently sitting 7th. They've been fine. It's kind of a disappointment for them last season. And it's a little weird too, because producer Aaron has pointed this out. Their record is essentially the same as it was last year when they were the 3rd best team in the Western Conference. Now they're the 7th best team in the Western Conference. And it just really speaks to how loaded the conference is, right? That the Kings are still a good team. They're bad defensively when Fox Sabonis
terrible
on the floor, especially with those 3 on the floor. Their net rating defensively is in the garbage. But unfortunately for them, those are their three best players because Keegan Murray still hasn't really taken that jump. They were waiting on him this season, and he's been hit or miss. So I like the Kings. They're one of the reasons why I don't have 8 teams potentially coming out of the West, Bill. I don't think that there's any chance that the Kings.
I'll strike them off the list. You're right. I'll strike them and another team. You hit it.
Yeah, the next team.
You have to be balanced offensively and defensively. Just historically speaking, I think it's 2 teams in the last 26 years have won an NBA championship, not being in the top 10 in offensive and defensive rating, other than repeat winners like the Warriors. They kind of take their foot off the pedal a little bit. So for me, Ash, I love the Kings. They're so much fun to watch. They're exciting. When they win, they tend to score 130 points. I took my kid to a Kings game.
They're fun.
Henry, sorry, I got a name. You're right, Ash. I'm sorry. Who's cooler than me? You already told me a few times and on the radio. Henry, who's cooler than me. It was super fun. They're not a legit until they improve defensively, and that's going to be hard for the reasons John talked about. They're just not in that grab bag of teams that can come out of the West. Not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much on Sacramento. Same thing. I'm a firm believer defense wins championships, and the fact that they have such a bad defensive rating is a problem for me. I would have thought that it would have improved. It hasn't improved. So for me, until that part of their game, because offensively, so much young talent, like so many snipers and scorers, and that's never been an issue, but you're going to have to go ahead and defend, especially if you're going to face like a team like Denver. There's so much size in Denver, and for you to be unable to defend them, you don't stand a chance. You just don't. And I think that that's the case with a bunch of teams in the Western Conference. So if this was an East team, they'd probably be a number 1 seed, but they're not.
They do match up well with the Lakers, though. Like AD wants nothing to do with Sabonis for whatever reason, but like watching that game in person,
yeah,
I mean, they blew the doors off that Lakers team after the Lakers built that's a good matchup for the Kings, I think.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with them in the offseason because they didn't really do anything this past offseason except extend Sabonis, which fine, great. He's a very good player and they should. But Malik Monk, for example, in the running for 6th man of the year, right? And he is one of their probably 3 best players. Unfortunately, when you have the 3 of them on the floor together, they're porous defensively. So what do they do with Malik Monk in the offseason I'm checking right now. I believe he's a free agent this offseason.
By the way, to your point, impressive by that guy to rehabilitate his career. I loved him when he came out. He just fizzled in Charlotte.
He was nowhere, and now I mean, you know what? He deserves. He would be
he'll be somewhere else.
Man of the year, and they should bring him back, but you got to beef up the team otherwise.
He'll get paid.
So that's why they're one of my reasons why it's only 6 teams, not 8 teams. The other team, why it's 6 teams and not 8 teams that can come out of the Western Conference is right behind them, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. What a weird season for them, right? I mean, going into the break, they had won 6 in a row. Coming out of the break, the wheels completely fall off. They go and get PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. They'd spend a bunch of draft capital on it. And then all of a sudden, Daniel Gafford's out of the rotation. Then he's back in, but he's only playing sparingly. Here's the point I want to hit on. Luka's just set a pretty impressive individual record. He's the first player in NBA history with 6 straight 30-point triple doubles, right? Passes Russ. They were only 3-3 over that stretch, though. And this is something that we've discussed before the genesis of Beyond the Arc. Can they win with Luka putting up these like fantasy cartoonish numbers, looking amazing individually, but it hasn't really translated so far to super team success?
No.
I don't think this team wins until they stop trying to cheat the system in building around Luka. And what I mean by that is they just see, and I get it because Luka has been with the organization for X amount of years. He's probably impatient. He wants to win. He hasn't seen much success as a winner in this league as some of his counterparts have, right? But they keep just throwing random ingredients into the pot and hoping it comes out tasting well and everybody wants more. And that's not how you build a team. First it's KP, then it's Kyrie. Kyrie and Luka can't figure out how to play together, but then you try to fill them in with a bunch of pieces that you either don't use or they don't work. I just don't know what the end goal is for this Mavericks team while they have Luka, because I don't know how much longer he's going to have the patience for them to figure it out because they've been unable to do it. It's not that Luka's not talented. It's that he has to be surrounded by a particular group of guys, and they've been unable to do that for one reason or another. So until that happens, the Dallas Mavericks will always be a team that's in the playoffs. They're always going to be a team that wins games and brings eyes and people want to know what they're doing. Luka's there. And I just don't know if they'll ever take that next jump into that next tier until you figure out the correct way to build around Luka. And that's going to take time. Now, if Luka's willing to give you that time at this stage in his career because of how many times you've screwed that up, that's a different conversation. But they got to stop trying to like cut corners to make this work. It's not working the way they're doing it. It's just not.
All right. Two things that they're going to seem a little off, but this is a view around the NBA. Well, one's a view, one's a fact. There is a view that maybe the problem is Luka Doncic. And there are ample numbers of GMs that I have talked to. And John, I know you and I have discussed this, and I think you and I have too. Ample numbers of GMs. And I'm talking smart guys, not necessarily people that get fired every other year, who will tell you in private that you cannot win with Luka Doncic. That his usage rate, how his pace of play, his defensive liabilities, and his particular way of playing, there's a lot of skepticism in the NBA that you can build a championship winner around this guy. And none of these people are doubting his massive excellence. The guy's obviously super talented. You pair that with the fact, whatever you think of Kyrie Irving, the reality is if you get into the numbers since he left Cleveland, in almost every stop that he's been, in almost every incarnation, he has been a net negative for his teams. If you look at and there's big sample size because of time that he's missed. When you look at him in Boston, when you look at him in Brooklyn, when you look at him before this year in Dallas, his teams literally had better records when he did not play than when he did play. Now, I know that there's more to it than that he's so talented in the playoffs. You want a guy that can go out there and win games and raise the ceiling. All of that's true. But I think part of the problem, John, is you have a Luka Doncic, a guy that's been out of the postseason one time. And I know that he made a conference finals, but the Jalen Brunson part of that is we all see it a lot differently than we did back then. Yeah, huge. And if I remember right, Luka missed some time in that series early in that playoff run, and Jalen filled in. You sort of saw that superstardom. So he did have a second superstar. And I think, look, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche based in historical fact. Kyrie Irving is talented, but outside of that one time with LeBron, he was awesome in that finals, especially that last shot. Kyrie Irving's been a net negative for the teams that he's played for, literally by record.
It's a problem for those two defensively, right? I mean, like offensively, they are super dynamic. They can go thermonuclear like overnight.
As individuals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, offensively together too, they've been really good this season. The problem is, especially when you're talking about perimeter defense, I don't think that you can be a good perimeter defensive team with those two guys together. I mean, even if you're staggering them, you got serious issues. I mean, I've talked to you guys about this, like the win where the Sixers last week beat the Mavs on their own floor. I mean, Luka got, and that's a terrible Sixers team right now. Believe me, Luka got lost defensively so many times. It was actually embarrassing. Now, nobody was talking about it because he's putting up, 30-point triple doubles, and it's really amazing what he's doing offensively, but defensively it's a problem, which is another reason why I don't think that they're getting out of the Western Conference. I want to wrap up the show though, our maiden voyage, with the one team we haven't gotten to yet in the Western Conference. And that's the Warriors. And they looked really good after Draymond came back from his second,
outstanding.
They've lost 2 in a row. Steph just rolled his ankle. He's out again tonight against the Spurs. He's going to be reevaluated tomorrow. Now, they do have a little bit of a cushion. They got a 5.5 game lead over the Rockets, so I'd be shocked. They'll be fine. They're going to make the play-in at the very least. When this team is healthy and when Draymond has been out there, they have looked really good, but a little bit worried about Steph and those ankles.
I think they're the best team from 6 to 10 if Steph is healthy and Draymond is out there. I mean, you said it, but when Draymond came back into the starting lineup, from the moment that happened against the Lakers in that double overtime loss up until when Steph got hurt, they were outstanding offensively, pretty good defensively. They'd regressed a little bit, and they were amazing. I think 4th in net rating, if I'm remembering this properly. They looked like a bona fide championship caliber team. And then you throw in the fact that Steph Curry, we've already seen carry a team to a championship a couple years ago when maybe we didn't realize how much the Warriors are past their expiration date relative to what they've been before when they beat the Celtics. I know the road's hard, and I know that they're probably, because of Steph's injury, they could very well be in that 9 or 10 slot. So you got to win that game, and then you got to win another game, and then you got to hope really you're not playing the Denver Nuggets, that the Nuggets aren't the 1 seed. But if the Warriors get into a best of 7 series, I think they are every bit as capable of making a run to the finals as any team in the West that is not the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, they've really stumbled onto something here this season, right? Like all of a sudden, they had some problems with Clay earlier this year where he wasn't playing well. He certainly wasn't playing up to the standard that we've been used to with Klay Thompson. Defensively, he slowed down a little bit. And then all of a sudden they look around and they're like, Podziemski's not bad, right? Like Kuminga can give us something this season. Draymond comes back. He unlocks so many different things. I mean, you look at his stat lines. Yeah, he doesn't score the ball a ton, but he does so many other things. He's awesome in transition. He's a good rebounder. He's an excellent passer. Defensively, he can switch 1 through 5. I'm with Bill, Ashley. I think this team, if they can get out of the play-in, which is a big if, because you do have to win 2 games to get out of it. It could be, which would be like a mind-blowing play-in game. Yeah. One of those has to go home. But if you ask me which team I have more faith in right now between the Warriors and the Lakers, it's the Warriors for me. If Steph's there, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the Warriors just on paper are the better team when healthy. And I think that the experience of those 3 guys, and also we bring in Chris Paul, he has a lot of experience in the postseason, not winning, but he's been there multiple times. I do think that just supersedes what they have in LA. I do think, though, I'm not too worried about Steph's ankles. I think maybe in the long term when thinking about his career, I'm worried. But I think that, Chris Paul coming back, Klay Thompson's flourishing in his role off the bench. I think that they're in a much better situation at this point of the year than they were before the All-Star break, where it was like, this window might be closed. Like, it may be done for them. But I feel like they're surging at the right time. And when the Warriors are hot and when the Warriors are gelling and they're flowing, I don't think anybody wants to see them. And I think the Warriors know like what's being said about them. But one thing I love about this team, they never get too high. They never get too low. They're pretty even in the way that they approach games where they're drastically trailing behind. One of the reasons I love this team so much is that it's one possession at a time, just one play at a time. It's never getting too high, too low. It's just even keeled. And I think that that's the making of a team that's very, very dangerous in the postseason and is a team that can upset a lot of teams if they get them on the wrong day. And I don't know. I
have experience. I mean, they've been there.
I wouldn't have taken that Timberwolves Warriors bet, John. I would have.
I'm not feeling good about that Timberwolves bet for a lot of reasons, but we'll see how that works out. I just would like to see Steph Curry healthy and his ankle's okay, because it's way more fun when Steph Curry's out there on the floor than when he's not. But this has been fun. This was our first Beyond the Arc. We have many, many more to come. Tomorrow, Ashley and Bill will be back. Bill and I will be back. There'll be all kinds of different combinations of us. And as I mentioned, we're going to have Avery Johnson in the mix and Rip Hamilton in the mix. But for now, that's it for us. If you enjoyed it, and even if you didn't, please tell some friends and family members about it. Subscribe to the show. So for Ashley Nicole Moss, for our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, I am John Gonzalez. I don't think that's third person. I am John Gonzalez. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching and listening to Beyond the Arc.